All right, we are starting today now in Luke chapter 5. It's just a quick review where we've been. If you go back, we had Luke chapters 1 and 2 about the Christmas story and all the prologue to the gospel. In chapter 3, we had was that the temptation, if I remember, chapter 3? Or was it chapter 4? Let me see. Chapter 4, yeah, we come to chapter 4. We had the temptation of Christ. He goes off in the wilderness, he's tested by the devil. And then after being declared the Son of God, then he comes back, and we just finished up chapter 4 last time. He goes to Nazareth, his hometown, proclaiming in the synagogues. I want to read it one more time. I want to make sure we get this. So let's see. Jenna, would you start us off here and read for us? You can see on the screen there, chapter 4, 16 to 19. Actually, no, 16 to 21. Just always a reminder of the themes for this gospel. Would you read that for us?
Yes. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as was his custom, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. And the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing."
Thank you. I can't stress this enough. This is the theme of our gospel here and all the stories we're reading. The Spirit of the Lord is upon him, and the mission that he's given the Son of God when he enters the world is what? What is his mission here? What is he doing? What does he come to do?
Proclaim good news,
Yeah,
set us free.
set people free, to liberty to the captives, good news to the poor, sight to the blind, liberty to those who are oppressed. This is the year of the Lord's favor. You know, the Son of God is entering into a wicked world. I mean, you think things are bad now. The darkness at the time of his coming was the greatest, perhaps, in the history of mankind, for all we know. All the nations are in darkness and going after other gods. There's no knowledge of the true God. All of them stand condemned. The Romans are ruling the world, and they are of utmost depravity. And even the Jews in Jerusalem are depraved and corrupt, as we will see. Even their priests and their Pharisees and their leaders, the demons will find out, are in the synagogues. The devil is ruling this world, and it is a dark place. And the question is, when the Son of God comes, what does he come to do? Like the demon says, have you come to destroy us? Is that why you've come? And the answer is the Spirit of the Lord is on Christ, not to condemn and destroy. It is not to proclaim the year of the Lord's wrath and anger, but this is the year of the Lord's favor. He has come to save, and that's going to be important. So when he leaves there, you'll notice he goes out and, well, he has issues with his own hometown. Again, how depraved are they? What do the Nazarites want to do? Jesus' own neighbors, the ones who saw him grow up, who knew his family, what do they want to do with him?
From off the cliff.
They're ready to throw him off a cliff.
Mm.
Because well, first off, he won't do the miracles he's doing in other towns for them. And then he tells them the truth. You're depraved. You are the ones who are, as in the time of Ahab in Israel, when Elijah went to the Syrians and to the Sidonians for miracles because the people were so depraved. That's you. They don't want to hear the truth. But he goes around and he goes to Capernaum, which is where we went last time. Performs a couple miracles of note in Capernaum. Do you remember what they were? Look at them. There was one in the synagogue and then one in the town. If you can remember what they were.
He tells he takes a demon out of a guy.
Yeah. Yeah. In Capernaum, in the synagogue, he confronts a man with a demon, rebukes the demon, "Be silent, come out," and commands him. And that's important. His first miracles, he comes out with authority. And that's one of the things they marvel at. What is this word? It's with authority that he commands. That he is not praying for the people and asking the Lord to have mercy upon them. He just takes charge, commands the demons, and they obey him. And then he goes to Simon's home. And do you remember what happened there?
Cured Peter's mother.
Yeah, and how did he cure her? She had a fever, if you remember.
Basically said, get up.
Yeah, he rebukes the fever. He commands disease. It's like it's not just the demon. Not only the demons submit to him and he can command them, the viruses submit to him, and he can command them to leave. And he stands even the way he does it. He stands over her and rebukes. Again, authority is presented there. And then, as the sun was setting, what happened?
Everyone who was sick wanted to see him.
Yeah. Everyone who had diseases and demons came to him. And how does he heal them, if you remember? That was
His
interesting.
hands on.
Laid hands on them.
Yeah, that was really interesting because with the others, he commands them, and he could have commanded all those as well. He could have said, "Everyone who's around the house, be healed," and they would have all been healed and gone home. But he lays his hands on every one of them. And that's what we talked about, this theme of not just his power and authority, but his love and compassion and his tenderness, that he treats them not as numbers, but as individuals, each one of them, laying hands upon them and freeing the captives. Again, all coinciding with what his declared mission is as he proclaimed it. But then he says, he leaves there and he says, "I need to depart." And now he goes to preach the good news all throughout Judea and the synagogues there. And that's where we left off last time. So we're going to pick it up now in chapter 5. He's back up in Gennesaret is the sea, I believe that's another name for the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
He's back there again. So he's returned to Galilee, or depending on the translation, maybe he never left, but he's back in Galilee. And let's see what happens here. Verses 1 to 11. Zach, would you like to read for us here? It's great having you. So.
Yeah. On one occasion, while the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, and he saw 2 boats by the lake, but the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he asked him to put out a little from the land, and he sat down and taught the people from the boat. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." And Simon answered, "Master, we toiled all night and took nothing, but at your word I will let down the nets." And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to the parents in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both the boats, so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." For he and all
Right.
and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of the fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men." And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go through the details of this and try to get a picture of this. So first is, where is this happening here? We're not told the when, it's just on one occasion, but where is this happening?
The Lake of Gennesaret.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
Lake of Gennesaret. I'm not sure why they call it that here.
Because there's a town on the lake with that name.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, there's actually 3 names for
Oh,
The Sea of Galilee.
What
Sea
is the other one?
Galilee or the was the Tiberias?
Yes, Tiberias, Gennesaret, and Galilee.
Yeah, okay. So this is
Tiberias and Gennesaret are both towns in the lake.
okay. So he's standing by the lake of Gennesaret. Okay, so he's standing by the lake. So let's go through what happened here. So what's the setup for the scene here?
There's a bunch of fishermen cleaning nets.
Okay.
Fish-
Before we get that, so what's Jesus doing?
Fishing. For men.
Oh yeah, fishing for yeah. So so Jesus is standing by the lake. And he gets into one of the boats. So there are two boats. But where were the fishermen?
On the shore.
Yeah. So fishermen washing nets. They'd left them, so washing nets on the shore, I'm assuming. And he gets into one of the boats, which was Simon's. So Jesus gets into Simon's boat. And what does he have him do? Why does he get into the boat at all?
To
Some space.
have them-
Yeah.
Need space. There's big crowds there.
Yeah, we forgot at the very beginning. It says, while the crowd was pressing in on him. So, standing by the lake, preaching the word of God, the crowds are pressing in on him. So, he decides to get in the boat, and he has Simon put him out a little bit from the land, and goes offshore just a bit to teach. So you can see the picture now. He goes in the boat. They go just a little bit off the land to give him some distance. He sits in the boat and he begins to teach the people from the boat. That's the first thing that's happening here. Now, what's the next thing? So this is scene. We'll call this scene 1 here. Yeah. And now scene 2. What happens in scene 2?
They're washing their nets and Jesus gets into the boat.
Yep. So he gets into the boat.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. If I can get here. But the next scene here, we're going to pick it up. Verse 4, after he finishes speaking. So after teaching, what happens?
Let's go fishing, Peter.
Okay, he said, put out into the deep. He commands Simon to put out into the deep for catch. So Jesus is with Simon in the boat when he does this, correct?
Yep.
All right. Simon's response to this is what?
We already
Okay.
worked out,
Go ahead, Jack.
we already worked all night trying to fish and
Yeah.
nothing.
Right.
Yeah. We've toiled through the night and nothing. And nothing's going to change if there's no fish out today for some reason and caught nothing.
But the thing is that you catch more fish at night. Once the sun comes up, the fish find deep waters or cool shade. So
Yeah. So it's like if we can't get him at night, we're not going to get him now. That's for sure. So he doesn't think there's any hope for getting fish. However, what does he say though?
But at your word, I will let down the nets.
At your word, I will do it. Down the nets. Okay. So he's not being disobedient to him. He's just saying, look, we toiled all night, we took nothing, but even so, at your word, if you say so, we'll go out and throw in the nets again. And what happens?
Success.
Something I wish for regularly.
netful.
A large number of fish, such that how large was the number of fish? Well,
Great multitude.
say The nets were breaking. They signal to their partners in the boat to come and help them. They come and they fill both the boats. And what happened to the boats?
They
Scott.
begin to stink.
Yeah.
And they begin to sink from the weight of the fish. That's amazing. Yeah, that's a lot of fish. All right.
Mm.
Let's this next scene I think is going to be very important here of what happens next.
Yep.
And I have a little bit of a different take on this one here than I used to have. I used to think that that Simon was being, maybe a little snarky and unbelieving and disobedient in some ways, but he's not. He calls him master and he just says, look, we toiled and took nothing, but at your word, I'll do it. But what's the response now? This scene 3 is Simon's response.
Mhm.
So we have scene 2 is Jesus' command. Scene 1 was Jesus' teaching. What's
Yeah.
Simon's response to him? Let's look at that one more time.
I like that. He falls to his knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord."
Yeah. So he falls to his knees.
Yep.
And the question is, why does he do that? Depart from me, for I am a sinful man.
Yeah.
And don't leave out the last part. Oh Lord. Mm,
He recognizes that Jesus
Fine.
Christ is the Lord.
yeah.
R.C.
Simon. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say R.C. Sproul makes a big deal about this whole reaction. He says that there is nothing the fraudulently holy is more scared of than the true deal, the real deal on the scene. And so Christ, whenever he manifests his glory, he walks on water, he calms the seas, he gives them a great fishing trip here. Whenever he gives them a little peek of who he really is, the reaction is never, man, that was really cool. Could you do it again?
Yeah.
The reaction is always, in all of those 3 stories, fear. Because the fraudulently holy, when they realize they're in the presence of the real deal, it's scary.
Yeah. So I want to reflect a little bit on this, because here's the thing. There's something about this miracle that is rattling to Simon. Remember, Simon was there when Jesus healed his mother-in-law. And he was there when Jesus touched all those people and they were healed and cast out demons. But this miracle is more astonishing to him than all those other things that have happened. And my question is this: what makes this miracle so astonishing to Simon?
I think Simon, making this his career of fishing is just in disbelief, because he's been fishing all his life. He's never seen anything like this.
Oh, okay. So it's almost like the astonishment of a doctor who sees a miracle healing, has a greater appreciation for it, perhaps. And we've seen that where it's like, I prayed for somebody, maybe they got healed, and I'm like, hey, that's great, got healed. But the doctor who's dealing with it says, this is unheard of. I study medicine. I know these things. This doesn't happen. I think that was our
Plus, it was
experience.
personal. It touched his heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that really, when Daniel was a baby, and he had a brain tumor. He had this. It was benign, but it was still a troublesome thing that it was going to grow, and we were praying for him because the doctor was like, "This is what's going to happen. It's going to grow, and it's going to start getting into dangerous areas, and then you're going to need to have some surgery on it, and the surgery is not pleasant." And then even that's not going to take care of it. It's going to keep growing after that, and it's going to be a perpetual problem for him. And like, oh goodness. So we were just praying. A lot of people were praying for him. And the next time we saw it, that it hadn't grown at all. So that was good. It was like a year later. And then a couple years later, we come back in, and the doctor's like, "Did you have surgery on him?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about now." And it's just because it's half the size. It shrunk. And we're like, "All right." I say, "Okay." And he's just like, we don't know what to make of it. We're not doctors. We don't know what tumors are supposed to do. But the following time, after a couple of years, we went again, and it was gone. And he was astonished at this. We were like, I mean, we were thrilled but pleased, but we weren't nearly as astonished as he was, because he's dealt with these things before, and he's seen how they're supposed to act, and this is not how it is. So I think you might be onto something there. There's something, he knows fishing. This is his domain, and he's seeing something he's never seen before. There's also something else here I think I want to reflect upon, this about where they are right now on the waters and the fish. If you could pull back for a second and think about scenes of waters, what are you thinking about here? The biblical scenes dealing with waters and teeming
Creation.
fish.
New Testament or Old Testament?
You get Old Testament here. They haven't written the New Testament when this is happening. I mean, what's the first scenes in the scriptures in the
God
Bible?
separated the waters.
Yeah, everything is happening over the waters. It's in Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God begins creation, commanding the waters. And on the day 5, he just fills the waters with the fish and the birds of the heaven. There's something about water miracles that are just a taste of divinity that takes this of another level, because the waters are the untamed. The waters are, no man has any, only God walks on the waters. Only God can tame these things and create. And there's something about it that he doesn't. This is not just the relocation of fish that's happened here.
Hmm.
This, I would argue, is at the word of Christ, the creation of fish filling those nets. Do you think he just kind of blew a whistle and all these fish came out of their hiding places and filled the net? I don't think there'd be enough. That's even. He fills their nets. He creates the fish like he did the bread in John 6. There's something about this miracle that I think, in my understanding of it, is that this is a miracle of creation.
Hmm.
That goes beyond the healing of the sick, because we've seen people like Elijah and Elisha in the Old Testament heal the sick, and casting out demons was something that that people at that time were doing. But this kind of thing, it's not simply like they cast it out and they got a boatload, hey, good for them. It's like they had so much. It was creating something out of nothing. There was nothing there. That's what we're told. There was nothing there. And now the nets are full and they're sinking the boats. They're so full of fish. And that's why you'll notice the way he cries out when he speaks to Christ at the beginning. What does he call Christ in verse 5? What does he call Jesus there?
Master.
Calls him master, which is great. He's authority. That's a good name for him.
Hmm.
But after this miracle, what does he call him?
Lord,
Lord.
capital L.
Yeah. Oh Lord. That's not another word for master. What does "oh Lord" mean?
God.
God. Yeah. Simon, in this moment here, calls Jesus Lord. This is the divine name. This is God, the name of God.
Seems
He's the Lord.
reminds me of Isaiah.
Yes. In fact, Liz, I want to show you something here. I was preparing this lesson, and so I decided that I would print out Isaiah 6 so we could read that, because it's exactly what this is, isn't it? Simon's response to Jesus is, he says, what does he say? Depart from me, O Lord. Why?
He's not worthy of them.
Depart from me, for I am a sinful man. And I used to think that he felt bad that he was kind of snarky with Jesus when he said, Master, oh, fine, at your word, I'll do that. I don't think so. I think he is lamenting his whole condition as a sinner. I think he sees himself, he's in the presence of God. And I think he's seeing his own sin, he's exposed before him. Not anything in particular with this scene, but his whole life, the whole fabric of his life and fallenness.
Yeah, it's less than holy in front of pure holiness.
Yeah. Yes. Right. And
Pastor,
again,
is there any correlation to baptism here at all?
with the
With the waters, I don't, you know,
waters are powerful scenes because you're going to see where waters are. The creation begins with the waters. You have the judgment of Noah coming with the waters.
The parting
You
of the
have
Red Sea.
parting of the Red Sea. Great moments of judgment and salvation come through waters. I think you can kind of stretch it and you can speak to it in that way. That this is a you might even say this is Simon's conversion. You might even say that this is the moment of his profession of faith. It's the trauma of salvation. It's something that we talk about being born again, and people that have come to Christ who have known him that way. There's a certain point where you experience sort of the trauma of salvation, where you recognize your own sinfulness. I'm a sinful man. Not just that I did some bad things, but I myself am sinful, and we kind of falling down before the Lord, and to hear the words of comfort. What is Jesus' response to him? And that's the last scene here.
Fear not.
Yeah,
You'll be
And cry.
catching men.
yeah. Don't be afraid.
What-
Um,
I'm wondering if Andrew was in the crowd.
Probably. He doesn't mention it.
No.
And then if you remember after the call, and then Simon leaves. They had brought everything. They left everything and followed him. They, meaning Simon, was it James and John? They left all to follow him. All right, I want to come back to that. So you can kind of see this. The pattern of this scene is truly reminiscent of Isaiah 6. And I think that's very important. There's some things that are so similar to Isaiah 6, but there's also some things that are very different. And I want to take a look at Isaiah 6 with you, and then we'll come back and reflect upon some of those differences here. So let's go to Isaiah 6, if you can see that here. And let's read that together. Teresa, would you start us off here, verses 1 to 5?
I can't see it, Michael. I'm sorry.
Okay. Let me get it bigger. Is that big enough?
In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. And the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. 2 had covered his face, and 2 covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost. I have a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts.
Okay. So Isaiah has a vision. What does he see?
Seraphim.
Seraphim. Do you know what seraphim are, by the way?
Yeah, they're the guardians of the throne room.
Yeah, they are. They are cherubim is another name for them. Seraphim and cherubim. They are the guardians of the throne. The seraphim, I believe, is they're called seraphs, the burning ones. They are a flame. These are flaming servants, if you will, of the Lord. It's an incredible scene as these awesome creatures, the seraphim, with 6 wings. And why do they have 6 wings?
2 to hide their eyes, 2 to cover their feet because they're in a holy place, and 2 to fly.
So they're used to fly to keep them. This is an exalted scene. They are high above. He's looking up. He's seeing them flying, and they're covering their faces because they are as awesome as they are. They are in the direct presence of the Holy One, the Lord, and they cannot look upon him. And 2, they even cover their feet, and that's another significance thing of just sort of the. We see that with Moses. Remember, he had to take off his shoes because the place you're standing is holy.
Holy ground.
And then they fly and they are crying out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." And what is the Lord doing as he sees the seraphim up there? Where is the Lord? That
Sitting on a throne.
he's sitting upon his throne, high and lifted up. The train of his robe filled the temple. You know the significance of the train of the robe, what that's about?
The longer the robe, the more important you are.
Yes. So a king, when he conquered a nation, would add an extra length to his robe. And so this shows his dominion over all things. He has all the nations are his, all is his, and he's above them. And the foundations shake and they tremble, and the house is filled with smoke. So the whole scene here is, you can see it. It's terror. It's terrifying. If there's earthquakes, it's shaking, that's filled with smoke, the flaming seraphim. They're not described as the cherubim, but as the seraphim, again, emphasizing the fire and the judgment here. This is a scene of awesomeness and judgment. And I don't know if you know anything about King Uzziah, who he was.
Yeah, he was the guy that got leprosy when he tried to play priest.
Yeah. King Uzziah, if you read the story in the book of the Kings, he was a very successful king, highly successful. And some might even say it was the most expansive that the Israel had, or Judah had known under his tenure there. They had such great success that he became full of pride, so that he even presumed to go into the temple as if he were the priest and burn incense. And he caught leprosy, and he died from that, a leper, because of what he did. But he was full of pride. And so this scene of the Lord coming, kind of showing who's boss here, and exalting himself, humbling all the nations in Isaiah. Isaiah's response to this is what?
Woe is me.
Yeah. Woe is me. I am lost. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Isaiah is distraught. He sees things clearly, maybe for the first time, of who the Lord is, of who he is. And it's trauma. And this is Isaiah. This is not a sleazy guy. This is probably the greatest man alive at that time. And he is lost and undone. The response, then, we skipped that part of it. Let's get to the next part here. Jack, you want to read that for us? Verses 6 and 7.
Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth and said, "Behold, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin is atoned for."
So what happens to Isaiah? Isaiah cries out, "Woe to me! I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to die. I'm going to perish here." But what happens to him?
One of the seraphim flew to him. Can you imagine that coming at you?
Yeah.
Lips with the coal.
But he doesn't come to destroy him.
No.
He comes with a burning coal. And what happens?
his sin is atoned for.
Takes his guilt away, his sins atoned. And again, the burning coal, a symbol of judgment. It's by an act of judgment that Isaiah's sins will be atoned for and will be taken away. Again, all of this pointing us to the cross, the act of judgment against sin that saves us and cleanses us.
Says he has a burning coal, but Isaiah's not burnt.
No, just his sins are taken away.
Hmm.
His sins atoned for.
You know, that Paul talks about an out-of-body experience that he had when he was given a thorn in the flesh to keep him humble, you know, that passage. And I look at this passage here, and all of us are racing towards our expiration dates, as you would say, Pastor.
Yeah.
And these guys were either psychotics or they really saw something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thought that they really saw these things just sucks the wind out of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's pick it up from here. Elizabeth, would you read this for us here? Just finish up
Sure.
8.
From 8 on, okay. 8. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, here am I, send me. And he said, go and say to this people, keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make the heart of this people dull, and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. Then I said, how long, O Lord?
Okay.
And he said, until cities lie waste without inhabitant, and houses without people, and the land is a desolate waste, and the Lord removes people far away, and the forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. And though a tent remain in it, it will be burned again, like a terebinth or an oak, whose stump remains when it is felled, and holy seed is its stump.
Okay. All right. This is interesting. You know, when we often read this story, we kind of end at verse 8. So Isaiah, you know, he touches his mouth, his sins atoned for, and then the voice of the Lord says to him, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And then Isaiah says, here I am, send me. And cut scene, move on. Because we don't want to get into what was the mission that God would then send Isaiah on. What's his message going to be? And this is important to get. What is the message and the mission of Isaiah at the end of this scene? He's going to go speak to the people, but what's he going to tell them? Anyone?
Hear, but do not understand. Keep seeing, but do not perceive.
Yeah.
Make the heart of the people dull, and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes.
Stop right there for a second. He's telling them, okay, keep on hearing, people, but don't understand. You're going to see, but you're not going to perceive. As you preach them, you're going to make the heart of this people dull. Their eyes are going to be heavy, and their eyes will be blinded. And why is God doing that to them? Why is he causing them not to see and not to understand?
Lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts and turn and be healed.
Yeah.
He's basically the judgment against them.
This is a message of judgment. He says, I am, this people has grown so wicked and so proud that this is not a time where this is not a time of favor for them. This is a time I am angry with them. And I'm going to send you to them, and they're not going to hear, and that's the plan. They are not going to hear because this is not the time for them to turn and be healed. This is not the time. This is the time where they are going to be destroyed. He says, how long do I have to do this? Can you imagine that mission of telling people it's, you know, the Lord's angry with you. Be ever hearing and don't understand. Blind their eyes, and to go about and to have no, how long will it be that they won't understand, that they won't perceive? And he says, how long will it be? Verse 11.
Until the cities are laid to waste without inhabitants.
Yeah. till the land is desolate and the Lord removes the people far away. What's he talking about there? What event is he referring to? Isaiah wrote this around 700 BC.
Exile.
The exile that would happen in 586 when the Babylonians come in and utterly destroy the land and take the people away from them in exile. And though a tenth remained, it'll be burned again. He's just going to he's clearing house. But he's not going to take it completely. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it sounds like Gaza right now.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? He's gonna remove them far away. This is the time of God's indignation and wrath. He's foretelling, and he's not leaving them without hope, because he's going to leave a stump, and that holy seed is the stump, and there's going to be a return. But right now, Isaiah has a vision of the Lord seated on his throne, high and lifted up above the burning flames and the earthquakes and the judgment, and he has the response of, woe to me, I'm undone. Don't worry, you're atoned for. Now go and pronounce judgment on this people. Now come back to the scene with Jesus. We see Jesus seated also, if you noticed.
In the boat.
He's in the boat. He's seated in his boat. You'll notice he is not high and lifted up like the Lord is in Isaiah's vision. Where is he? He's right there with Peter, seated with him in the boat with him. And this great scene is, this wonderful scene is there's no terror in it, is there? There's nothing, there's no earthquake. It's just bountiful fish like you've never seen before. Also reminding you a little bit of the vision in Ezekiel, if you remember when we went through that, when the river was flowing from the temple and the restoration, and it goes deeper and deeper. It starts with a trickle and it goes deeper and deeper. It becomes this huge ocean filled with all kinds of fish, and the fish represent all the different nations and all the peoples that are going to be coming in and be saved. That's a great, and Jesus draws that parallel with him. But you'll notice that Peter says the same thing Isaiah says, woe to me, depart from me, I'm a sinful man, O Lord. But Jesus' calling upon him is different than the calling of Isaiah. What is Peter's mission, and how is it different from Isaiah's?
He's to go out and share the good news.
Yes. From now on, you're going to be going out, you're going to be catching men. You're not going to be driving men away like Isaiah was. Isaiah was announcing his word was a word of judgment, a word of, this is the day of indignation. This is the day God is angry with you. You are about to be destroyed. This is a day of God's wrath. For Jesus, remember, he said, I came to declare the day of the Lord's favor. And now you're going to go out and you're going to bring them back in. You're going to go out to those people that have been sent into exile from what happened in Isaiah's day. You're going to go out and bring them in. In fact, that's Luke doesn't really capture it as much as Matthew does. If you remember, Matthew uses the phrase, he has a similar scene, and he says, don't be afraid. From now on, you will be, if you remember, fishers of men. You remember that phrase?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a reference to, I believe it was Jeremiah. I don't know the exact reference off the top of my head, where God says to Jeremiah, in the past, I brought people out of Egypt by Moses, by one man, but now they've been scattered all over the world. And so I will call for hunters and fishers who will go after them and bring them home. And so Simon is the first who is recruited along with James and John and the other apostles who will come later to go and bring that message of, this is the year of the Lord's favor. Come home to the Lord. This is the time now. The judgment is over for us. This is the day of peace and reconciliation. So let's leave it right there. I think it's 3:11. Any last comments or questions about our scene here today? That was
you hear, just to use a couple of big words, you hear in reference to Christ sometimes, or God in general, that he's transcendent and that he's immanent, that he's far away and yet he's close by. And as you were going through these two passages, that's what it hit me. Isaiah he's clearly transcendent. That's being shown, that he's far away, he's otherly.
Yeah.
But these passages where he's right there with Peter, he's very close. He's imminent.
Yes.
And
I think you're spot on with that. Yeah, it's a different flavor to the ministry. It's the same, and it's the same glory that Peter. It's really interesting that Isaiah sees God in his glory as judge and is condemned. Peter sees Jesus' glory in his love and grace and is condemned too, and finds hope there. So great thought. Any other reflections before we break here? I'm gonna stop recording.